Men believe they are free until what they need becomes rare. This script exposes how scarcity silently bends minds, destroys resistance, and hands absolute power to those who understand it. The problem we confront is simple yet dangerous. People surrender judgment when they fear losing access to food, status, love, or opportunity. This script reveals how scarcity is engineered, why it works, and how it rules men without chains. Understand this first, for it is the foundation of all dominion. Men do not submit because they are beaten, they submit because they are deprived. Force awakens resistance, but scarcity invites surrender. A man struck by a sword remembers the pain. A man denied what he needs remembers who controls it. When abundance surrounds men, they grow bold. They question orders, debate justice, and imagine alternatives. Full hands create loud voices, but remove what sustains them: security, opportunity, approval, stability, and their courage thins like blood lost from a wound. Scarcity silences faster than violence ever could. A ruler who relies on force must constantly strike. His power is noisy, visible, and exhausting. Every blow risks rebellion. But a ruler who governs scarcity needs only patience. Hunger persuades where soldiers fail. Uncertainty bends spines that whips cannot. Men will endure cruelty, but they cannot endure prolonged lack. Observe how quickly obedience appears when access is threatened. The moment promotion becomes rare, loyalty multiplies. The moment safety feels conditional, silence spreads. The moment survival depends on permission, freedom becomes negotiable. Men begin to police themselves, censor their own thoughts, betray their own allies, not because they are ordered to, but because scarcity has made obedience feel like wisdom. Force commands the body, scarcity commands the mind. And the mind, once conquered, disciplines the body without further effort. This is why the clever ruler does not destroy institutions outright. He restricts them, he narrows pathways, he limits entry, he delays rewards. He creates queues where there were once doors. Men standing in line do not rebel, they hope. Hope chained to scarcity is the strongest restraint known to power. Consider fear. Fear alone is unstable, it seeks escape. But fear combined with scarcity becomes dependence. When men believe that only one hand can relieve their suffering, they cling to that hand even as it tightens around their throat. They call submission survival. They name obedience pragmatism. Scarcity also fragments unity. When resources are few, men turn against each other. They compete, compare, resent. Brotherhood dissolves into rivalry. In such conditions, no force is needed to divide them. They divide themselves willingly. While they argue over crumbs, the baker remains untouched. The great mistake of tyrants is excess. Too much force awakens martyrs. Too much deprivation invites revolt. But calibrated scarcity, this is art. Give enough to endure, never enough to challenge. Allow relief to arrive just before despair turns into rage. Let hope flicker, but never burn steadily. Men must believe compliance improves their chances. The obedient must feel closer to relief than the defiant. In this way, scarcity becomes a teacher, instructing men which behavior keeps them alive and which condemns them to exclusion. Even morality bends under scarcity. Principles are luxuries of the secure. When survival is uncertain, ethics become flexible. Men justify acts they once condemned. They praise rulers they once despised. They call submission maturity and resistance foolishness. This is why scarcity outlives force. When force ends, memory remains. When scarcity ends, gratitude remains. But while scarcity continues, obedience renews itself daily. Each morning, men wake and assess what they might lose. Each day, they adjust their behavior accordingly. A ruler who understands this does not shout commands. He controls timing, he withholds answers, he delays fulfillment, he allows uncertainty to do the work of intimidation. Silence, when paired with scarcity, speaks louder than threats. Remember this: chains restrain the body, but scarcity restrains the future, and men will sacrifice the present, the truth, and even each other to secure a future that feels increasingly fragile in their hands. Power lies not merely in the hand that strikes, but in the hand that provides. To rule men, one must first understand the invisible chains that bind them, their needs, their desires, their dependencies. Every choice a man makes is shaped by the resources available to him. Restrict the sources of wealth, food, opportunity, or knowledge, and you shape the decisions of those who depend upon them. This is the subtle art of control, to bend men without overt coercion, to guide them as the river guides the driftwood, invisible yet irresistible. When a ruler controls access to what men desire most, he holds dominion over not only their actions, but their ambitions, their alliances, even their morality. Men are persuaded to behave, not because they fear punishment alone, but because their survival, their comfort, and their advancement are tied to the favor of the provider. A clever leader understands that scarcity is a lever, and resources are the fulcrum. Remove or limit what people need, and they bend to your will not because they admire you, but because they cannot escape your influence. Observe the dynamics of scarcity in every society. Those who own the granaries, the gold, the opportunities for advancement, control the direction of men's labor and thought. Men may believe they act freely, that they choose their alliances and their paths, but these choices are made within the invisible confines of what they can access. Cut off a resource, and the illusion of freedom disappears. A man will abandon principles, betray allies, and reshape his conduct if it promises access to what he cannot create on his own. Control of resources is not merely economic, it is psychological. The ruler who dictates who eats, who speaks, and who prospers becomes an architect of decision itself. Men begin to align their desires with what is available to them, rather than what is noble or just. The boundaries of their choices shrink, their actions become predictable, and their loyalties are purchased not with coin, but with control. Once this is achieved, the ruler no longer needs to coerce. Men obey because the path of obedience is the only path that secures what they need. Consider the nature of opportunity. In scarcity, opportunity itself becomes a weapon. Promotions, contracts, influence, recognition, all are tools to guide behavior. Men scramble, strategize, and sacrifice in pursuit of what only the ruler can bestow. Competition arises naturally, rivals check each other, alliances shift, and the ruler observes in safety as men discipline themselves in the pursuit of controlled gain. Force is no longer necessary when men are competing to please you. Scarcity ensures they police their own ambition without external enforcement. Resources also shape perception. A ruler can elevate some to positions of power, granting them access while withholding the same from others. The favored few become dependent, grateful, and aligned. The neglected majority becomes cautious, wary, and silent. The control of resources is therefore control over influence itself. Men do not rebel against those who grant them what they cannot attain alone. They rally instead, hoping to secure favor before. The resource is removed once more. Even knowledge and information are resources. Control what is known, what is taught, what is shared, and men will see the world through the lens you allow. Their decisions, their alliances, their judgments are filtered through what you permit them to see. Scarcity of information shapes thought as surely as scarcity of food shapes action. When men cannot access the full picture, they rely on what is given to them, and in this reliance lies obedience. In every decision, men weigh what they have against what they can gain or lose. When resources are plentiful, choices multiply and independence flourishes. But when access is restricted, men are forced to follow the path the controller lays before them. This is the quiet power of scarcity, to bend the will, limit the imagination, and make obedience the most rational, most natural course of action. The ruler who masters this principle does not merely command, he orchestrates. He structures scarcity so that desire and dependence align perfectly with his objectives. Men act as if of their own free will, yet each decision serves the architecture of control. In controlling resources, the ruler controls more than men's actions. He controls their priorities, their alliances, their morality, and ultimately their very choices. Among men, desire and fear are the twin forces that guide every action, but of the two, fear of loss is the more potent. Hope can inspire, reward can motivate, but the dread of losing what one already possesses, or what one imagines indispensable, commands swifter obedience and sharper attention than the promise of future gain. The wise ruler understands this, for in the economy of control, fear of deprivation is the most reliable currency. Men are seldom motivated to act by abstract benefits or distant rewards. They calculate, compare, hesitate, but introduce the specter of loss, and hesitation vanishes. A man clutches what he has. He protects what might be taken. He obeys to secure what he cannot afford to surrender. Scarcity turns the mind toward vigilance, the heart toward loyalty, and the body toward submission. This is why scarcity is more than a condition. It is a tool of psychological mastery. The cunning ruler does not merely promise reward. He manipulates what men may lose. The carrot is less compelling than the threat of withdrawal. Men will tolerate harsh conditions, endure injustice, and align themselves with those who control access to that which they fear losing. The possibility of losing sustenance, influence, status, or security generates urgency that no promise of gain can match. Hope is passive, fear is active. Hope may inspire patience, fear provokes immediate action. Observe how markets and societies react to scarcity. When goods are limited, men rush, compete, and strategize with single-minded focus. When opportunities are threatened, men abandon caution. They cling to authority, follow instructions, and negotiate with desperation. All because the fear of loss presses upon them with a weight far greater than the light pull of potential reward. Loss is tangible, immediate, and emotionally charged. Gain is abstract, uncertain, and often distant. The human mind, ever pragmatic, responds accordingly. Fear of loss also shapes alliances and loyalty. Men will betray friends, abandon principles, and submit to authority if it preserves what they possess or what they hope to preserve. Those who understand scarcity wield not only control over resources, but control over human behavior itself. By making the consequence of disobedience a palpable threat, the ruler ensures that men act in accordance with his design even when direct oversight is absent. Fear becomes a silent enforcer, working inside the minds of men who believe are choosing freely. This principle is evident in politics, commerce, and warfare. Consider armies motivated not by conquest, but by the defense of territory and supply lines. Consider merchants who bend to the dictates of market scarcity to secure survival. Consider citizens who comply with laws they once ignored when penalties loom large. In every case, the shadow of loss bends behavior more predictably than the lure of gain. Men calculate the risks of surrendering what they hold and act accordingly, often faster and more decisively than they would to achieve reward. The ruler who leverages this principle need not be harsh. The mere suggestion of scarcity, the anticipation of withdrawal, the hint that access may vanish, these alone sharpen compliance. Men need not be beaten or coerced, they act willingly, driven by self-preservation. Scarcity combined with the fear of loss transforms passive obedience into active vigilance. Men begin to police their own desires, moderate their own ambitions, and suppress dissent, all in pursuit of retaining what they fear losing. Even morality bends before fear. Principles that seem inviolable in abundance crumble under the pressure of potential deprivation. Men justify acts they would otherwise condemn, praise those they would otherwise oppose, and adopt behaviors that serve the controller's interests. The fear of loss reshapes priorities, aligns behavior with authority, and ensures that obedience is not merely compliance, but a strategy for survival in an environment defined by scarcity. Hope can inspire, promises can seduce, but fear of loss demands attention and provokes action. Scarcity, when wielded skillfully, magnifies this effect, making men more compliant, more focused, and more predictable. Understanding this, the ruler wields scarcity not as a blunt instrument, but as a precise mechanism to orchestrate human behavior. Ensuring that men act in accordance with his will, without overt coercion or continuous oversight, men respond to scarcity not because they are weak, but because they are rational. Rational calculation under conditions of potential loss drives obedience faster than hope ever could. The mind, trained by the threat of deprivation, bends naturally, aligns instinctively, and submits with a quiet efficiency that force alone cannot achieve. A ruler who waits for circumstances to create scarcity is a ruler who waits for opportunity to slip from his hands. True power belongs to those who shape conditions, who craft limitation as a deliberate instrument of control. The wise ruler does not merely respond to scarcity, he manufactures it, bending resources, desire, and perception to serve his ends. This is no act of cruelty for its own sake, but of strategy, a calculated orchestration that ensures obedience, focus, and dependence. To manufacture scarcity is to understand the psychology of desire. Men value most what is limited, what is rare, what they cannot command at will. Abundance breeds negligence. Scarcity breeds vigilance. The ruler who controls the flow of resources controls the intensity of attention. By limiting access, he ensures that men remain engaged, striving, negotiating, and competing in ways that reinforce his power. He becomes the invisible architect of behavior, shaping society through absence as surely as others shape it through presence. Consider how manufactured scarcity influences alliances. When opportunities are few, men choose their alliances carefully. They seek favor, guard reputations, and temper ambition. Rivalries emerge, competition thrives, and yet the ruler remains untouched, observing from a position of strength. Scarcity divides and organizes simultaneously. It turns chaos into controlled activity. By dictating what is rare, the ruler controls relationships of men, their choices, and the energy they expend in pursuit of reward. Manufactured scarcity is also a tool of psychological leverage. The anticipation of limitation, even before it exists, can drive behavior. Men adjust their actions in response to the possibility that what they desire may vanish. A clever ruler need not withhold completely. He simply needs to make men uncertain. Delay, partial provision, selective distribution, these are sufficient to bend behavior. Scarcity need not be absolute. It must be believable, imminent, and tied to the ruler's favor. This principle extends beyond material resources. Information, opportunity, recognition, and trust are all currencies of scarcity. The ruler who controls what is known, who advances who is visible, who withholds or grants approval, manipulates the very choices of men. Obedience emerges not from force, but from strategic limitation. Men learn which actions preserve access, which behaviors attract favor, and which risk exclusion. They internalize the ruler's priorities, policing themselves in pursuit of what is scarce. Scarcity also sharpens focus. Men distracted by abundance squander attention and effort. Men constrained by limitation concentrate on what matters, on what is necessary, and on the channels that may lead to advantage. By manufacturing scarcity, the ruler directs not only behavior but thought, narrowing possibilities, defining acceptable ambition, and ensuring that energy flows toward his objectives. Men do not resist what they cannot fully grasp or access. They bend, adapt, and compete within the framework the ruler constructs. The art of manufactured scarcity is subtle. Too much deprivation sparks rebellion, too little undermines dependence. The ruler must calibrate carefully, giving enough to sustain hope but never enough to allow independence. Relief must arrive in measured incre. Ments, precisely when men are most attentive, so that gratitude and loyalty are entwined with desire. Scarcity becomes a lever, with the ruler as the fulcrum, balancing need and supply to maintain control without overt coercion. Furthermore, scarcity ensures predictability. Men's choices become transparent when options are limited. In abundance, action is unpredictable. Ambition flows in multiple directions. In scarcity, men align themselves with what is attainable. By manufacturing scarcity, the ruler transforms uncertainty into order, chaos into obedience. Men act in accordance with his will, even when they believe they act freely, because scarcity structures desire and channels behavior toward predetermined outcomes. Even fear itself can be manufactured through scarcity. By signaling the potential loss of what is valued, the ruler ensures that men act cautiously, comply diligently, and compete for favor. Scarcity magnifies the power of threat. making men sensitive not only to what they have lost, but to what they might lose next. The ruler who understands this wields not a sword, but a shadow, shaping conduct invisibly yet effectively. In essence, the wise ruler does not wait for scarcity to appear, he designs it. He controls perception, access, and timing. He ensures that men remain dependent, vigilant, and obedient. By manufacturing scarcity, he creates the conditions in which power is preserved not by force alone, but by the natural responses of those who seek what only he can provide. Scarcity is not merely a condition, it is a weapon, a lever, and a masterful tool of control. It bends minds more effectively than chains, shapes choices more powerfully than orders, and commands obedience more reliably than fear alone. Those who understand its subtle power rule not through brute strength, but through calculated absence, delayed fulfillment, and the anticipation of loss. The wise ruler does not rely on force to maintain dominion. He governs scarcity itself. He controls resources, manipulates desire, and manufactures limitation, so that men act in accordance with his will, believing they are acting freely. Fear of loss sharpens their loyalty, dependence ensures their obedience, and scarcity structures their choices. In the end, scarcity is the silent architect of power. It teaches men what to value, whom to trust, and whom to obey. It divides, directs, and dominates without overt coercion. He who masters scarcity masters men, not because he strikes hardest, but because he understands that absence, limitation, and controlled desire are the most dangerous powers a ruler can wield.